Are we pushing to be more righteous?
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's
I think it's cool to be,
the right side of history in a sense.
yeah, to be like a, what is it called? Like the act, like an activist,
Activists.
right? Like having the being on the right side of everything. Like I think that is cool now, right? Like
Yeah,
it's cool to go and say, oh, this guy's being racist. We need to cancel him, right? Like that type of stuff. Like that's, I don't know. It's, I feel like that this generation, that's part of what makes keeps them going, right? Is that I think it's also like when they do something like this, other people jump on and are like,
yeah.
oh yeah, you're right, and that gives them validation. So then that just like creates a mentality where like we need to be looking for more and more people to cancel and more people to say are wrong. But it's really a thing where like we're all human, right? Like we do things that are wrong. Sometimes we make mistakes.
We're not perfect at all,
We're
though,
not
for sure.
perfect. So like
Yeah.
how can we
Expect everybody to be
chastise
perfect.
every person for every mistake that they've ever made in their life?
That's true.
And people are going back in like people's Twitter history and Facebook history and all these post histories, and
Yeah.
then they're like, oh yeah, we need to cancel them for something they said 10, 20 years ago, right? Like it's
What I mean,
it's
I think whether it's wrong or right, though, I feel like they just maybe they want to call it out because it's not the right thing, or so do you think that they had too much spare time in their hand?
I don't think this is just a 2020 thing where like we're all home so then we have more. I
Yeah,
think this is getting worse and worse every year, and 2020 was just like a big hitting point because everyone was home. But I think people were doing this before that. Um, Something like
mm.
Kevin Hart. Remember when Kevin Hart got canceled?
Oh, dude, I remember that.
Like Kevin Hart back in like 10, when he was first starting his career, he put out
Beginning
some,
back in 2000. No, I mean that. Yeah,
it might be
early 2000.
2000s, right? Like he
Yeah,
put out like he put like he had a few of his shows where he had some like anti-gay stuff on his shows, right? They were
yeah,
all jokes and stuff.
yeah.
And then someone found a tweet of his from back then where he said if his kid was gay, he would punch him in the throat or something. Like he would hate that or something like that. And people got really upset with that. And then he was up to be like hosting the Grammys or like the something.
I
He
think I think it's no, not the Oscar. It's something I know about
he
something
was
big though.
hosting. He was like, that was his. He says this later in like interviews. He's like, this was my like the biggest goal ever was to host this award show, and he got the opportunity to do it, and then he got like this came out, and everyone was like, no, we can't have him on the show, and so he had to resign from the show, and it's like all of someone's hard work getting up to this one point to bring back one tweet of his or like something he said back in the day, and then that just like ruins like such
I
a
think
special moment.
I also think he got pressure. I think for 2018 for the Oscar hosting the Oscar. That's what it was. Um, I think you're right in a sense. Actually looking at this article. He had to step down from hosting the Oscar in 2019.
That's what it was, the Oscars, right? Like yeah,
Yeah,
he says later on like that was
is
his
that
goal.
resurfacing past Twitter feeds?
Yeah,
Isn't it
it
crazy?
was like 10 years before that. It wasn't something recent that he said.
70s, 80s
Right.
production.
And
So
that's the thing, right? Like we need to be aware of the
when was it
generation
produced?
that it was going towards.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff in,
And who wrote it and who at what age like that person wrote it? Keep that in mind, and how they grew up.
yeah, and I don't think like a stereotypical portrayal is really bad in like in the past, right? Like cuz that was like a normal thing. Like it was a norm for them. So we shouldn't be chastising them for norms that are happening. It's like these days, it's like in 20 years if someone chastised us for watching TikToks and things like
Yeah,
that. Like that's just part of the culture now, right? So like you can't like get upset with people um for just being a part of the culture.
that's true.
But there, like we should be aware that what we're doing could be misinterpreted as something much more serious. But it's still like it's part of our culture. So you shouldn't be going back super far and being like, hey, this we need to cancel them because of this. Like it should be like, oh hey, make this person aware, and then they can come back and say, hey, you know what, you're right. Like back in the day, I was wrong. Like Kevin Hart, right? He goes back and he's like, yeah, like now I'm looking back, like that those are insensitive. Like I should have said that stuff, right? And
Yeah.
it makes sense. But
Mhm.
like you shouldn't be like it shouldn't be like, oh, from this point on we need to kill this guy's career because of something he said 10, 20 years ago.